Keystone XL Pipeline, Trump's bold bet on America's energy future or environmental disaster. For over a decade, the Keystone XL Pipeline has sparked fierce debates and unimaginable controversy. After years of delays, budget blowouts, and environmental battles, this giant oil pipeline project has sat on the sidelines, its future uncertain. But now, could it be making an unexpected comeback under the leadership of former President Donald Trump? The federal government's 2018 purchase of the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion has brought oil to the surface. But could the Trump administration resurrect Keystone XL and make it the backbone of America's energy future? Or has this controversial project simply been buried for good? Keystone XL was once seen as a game changer, an enormous pipeline stretching from Canada's tar sands straight into U.S. refineries, poised to pump 830,000 barrels of crude oil daily across the border. At one point, it seemed inevitable, a massive lifeline to meet America's ever-growing energy demands. But then it was derailed. Environmentalists raised their voices, a new administration canceled the permits, and the project was abandoned. So why is Trump now stirring the pot, reigniting the flames of a battle that seemed to have been settled years ago? Could his second term truly bring this colossal project back to life? What would it mean for the United States, Canada, and the future of global energy markets? Despite the promises of fast-tracked approvals and immediate action, not everyone is buying into the hype. Southbow Corporation, a key player in the project's past, has flatly rejected the idea of picking up where TC Energy left off. What could possibly make a company turn down the chance to control a massive oil pipeline after years of negotiations and planning? With critical permits expired and much of the infrastructure dismantled, how realistic is it to simply dust off a project that has been shelved for so long? Is there any company out there that would be willing to take on the monumental risk and public backlash associated with the Keystone XL pipeline? Could this once promising venture now be seen as a financial and political liability? Meanwhile, the Canadian government, which stands to gain immensely from the project's revival, faces a bitter dilemma of its own. Canada has long been a reliable supplier of oil to the United States, but with Trump's looming tariffs on Canadian goods, how far is Canada willing to go to foster this energy partnership? Will the U.S. push too hard with its tariffs, rendering the pipeline obsolete before it even gets off the ground? How can Canada balance its desire to strengthen ties with its neighbor while safeguarding its own economic interests? Could these tensions prevent any serious talks from even beginning? But environmental concerns remain the loudest voices in this conversation. The Keystone XL pipeline is one of the most polarizing projects in modern history, and the opposition against it has never been more intense. From indigenous communities to farmers to environmental activists, the pipeline has faced years of fierce resistance. Why is the pipeline still so controversial, even after years of regulatory hurdles and government decisions? What is the real cost to the planet, to wildlife, and to the land itself? Can the United States really afford to risk its most precious ecosystems, rivers, aquifers, and farmland, in pursuit of oil from one of the dirtiest fossil fuels on Earth? With leaks and spills a known danger, how much will this project endanger communities, and could it trigger environmental catastrophes that last for decades? At its core, the Keystone XL pipeline has always been about energy. But could it really deliver the energy security Trump is promising? Would it make the United States more self-sufficient in oil? Or would the crude oil simply flow overseas, enriching corporations at the expense of American consumers? In a world where oil prices fluctuate wildly and environmental concerns intensify, is it worth building an infrastructure that could lock the country into oil dependence for decades to come? With most of the oil earmarked for international markets, would U.S. citizens even see the promised benefit of cheaper gas at the pump? Let's not ignore the practical and economic implications. If this pipeline is revived, the U.S. will need to commit to importing more Canadian oil, at the same time as Trump's administration imposes tariffs on those very imports. How can the government justify investing in a project that essentially asks Canada to build a multi-billion-dollar pipeline only to slap hefty tariffs on its products? Does this contradictory approach suggest a deeper, more complex political game? Or is it just the kind of political posturing that leaves everyone confused about what's really at stake? The geopolitical tension surrounding Keystone XL is undeniable. While Canada has been a loyal energy supplier, Trump's tariffs risk destabilizing this relationship. Can the two countries continue to cooperate on energy despite these escalating trade tensions? What happens when the world's two largest neighbors find themselves in a bitter fight over oil and energy policies? Will the United States turn its back on Canadian oil entirely, or can a new version of Keystone XL bridge the gap between economic interests and environmental responsibility? But even if the pipeline survives the political minefield, will it actually deliver on its promise of energy security? The stakes are high, but the risks of environmental disaster are even higher. How can a project that has leaked repeatedly in the past, spilling thousands of gallons of toxic oil into the environment, be considered a safe investment in the future? And what will the next spill cost, both in terms of money and in lives ruined by the fallout? For all the talk of energy independence, America's future might not rest in the hands of the Keystone XL pipeline after all. If it doesn't happen, where will Canada sell its oil? If not the United States, where will this vast supply of energy go? Could a revived Keystone XL pipeline actually be the worst option in the long run, locking the U.S. into decades of oil dependence, while the world increasingly looks toward cleaner alternatives? With President Trump's plan to resuscitate Keystone XL in full swing, the questions are more urgent than ever. Will this pipeline become the key to America's energy future, or will it be an environmental disaster that ends up costing far more than it's worth? How will this bold move affect the future of U.S.-Canada relations, and will it spark a broader trade conflict? And perhaps most importantly, will the risks of spills, environmental destruction, and international tension outweigh the promised rewards of cheap oil? As the story continues to unfold, one thing is certain: this debate is far from over, and the outcome will have ripple effects for generations to come. So what do you think? Can the Keystone XL pipeline be saved, or is it time to leave it behind for good?